To the Sacred You. We are having a beautiful panel discussion tonight with our lovely experts here. And so I want to welcome you to our beautiful panel of Inspire, Innovate, Ignite, Conversations That Count. And so what we're going to be talking about this evening or this morning or this afternoon, wherever it is that you are coming from, is we're going to be talking about taming your inner critic and who is in charge on the inside. So we all have an inner critic, right? This voice that comes at times of vulnerability when taking a risk, setting new boundaries, or even when all is well. Who's the inner critic anyway? And how do you recognize who's in charge on the inside? So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. And I have a beautiful panel of experts. And so our first panel is Allie Perry Davis. And Allison Perry Davis is intentional about finding joy in her life and inspiring others to find their own path to discovering their joy. Allie is a recent winner of the WOW Women of Worth 2023 Award for Community Spirit and sponsored by the Global TV, and a 2022 recipient of a Civic Service Award from the City of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Congratulations, Allie. That's so fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Allie is also a podcast host, creative art therapies and sound practitioner, author, motivational speaker, and mentor. And Allie continues to use humor and compassion to inspire, and encourage others to find their joy. She believes in building communities. So I'm super excited to have you here with us, Allie. And then we have the lovely Tiffany West. Hello, Tiffany. And Tiffany is the proud founder and creator of Interior Health Design, an inner wellness life coaching company that promotes peaceful living and soul-based healing from the inside out. She is an emotional care coach, helping women thrive internally and stay grounded under stress. So welcome, Tiffany. So glad to have you here with us. And then we have our lovely Allison Cotton. And Allison is part of the Sacred You.love as well. And she is a grounded and down-to-earth woo-woo woman with a big heart and a delightful blend of seriousness and humor, who has done and continues to do a lot of her own healing and deconditioning work. So remember that we're all still a work in progress. That's huge. By nature, she is a storyteller with a loving and nurturing heart. She gets great pleasure in empowering women and creating a sacred space for deconditioning and authenticity, as well as educating women so they know how to trust their own inner guidance and have the courage to take active steps because they know they are worthy. So as you can tell just by listening to those bios, that we have a panel of wonderful experts here to have this conversation about taming the inner critic. So I'd like to start off with a question for you ladies. And the way we'll do it is I'll just kind of choose one of you to start off and we'll go around in a circle from there. So I'd like to start with this question. How does the inner critic develop, and what role does early childhood experiences play in shaping its voice and influence? So I'm going to go in order of the bio. So Allie, can I ask you to answer that question first, please?
Hi, sure. It's interesting. I think that inner critics are, they're exploitive. They can be quite exploitive, and we can take many opportunities. So do I think an inner critic starts when we're really young? Absolutely. I think it can happen when maybe we have trauma experienced, or maybe there's whatever goes on when we're younger. There can be ways, there can be family norms that, just the way people speak to each other sometimes. So I think it starts to develop there. And I think sometimes if we're around some critical treatment or something, there's a way that we can start to doubt if what we're doing is okay. And that's somewhat how it starts. If we grow up in a healthy, nurturing environment where if I make a mistake, that's okay, and we're going to talk about that and learn how to do it better, how wonderful. Then it's going to be an inner critical thinker. However, most people are raised by other people who were raised by other people, and we didn't get that foundation usually. And so quite often that little voice that says, oh, that was so stupid. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Or I leave and I think of all the things I could have said. And I think that starts to shape that. And if there's no intervention, that will continue to grow. It's like a plant that I just kept watering, and the water was, what an idiot. I can't believe you did that. And that's the plant that grew for so many years. I think that's somewhere about where it starts.
And that's that voice that continues to guide you, right? Because that's what you were raised in. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think you really shine the light on how generationally we can keep adopting that inner critic that gets carried forward. So thank you. Tiffany, can you answer the same question? Do you need me to repeat the question?
Sure. Go ahead and repeat.
Yeah. Okay. How does the inner critic develop, and what role does early childhood experience play in shaping its voice and influence?
Allie, you described it so beautifully, and I have to second that. I believe that the inner critic is actually a construct of our psyche. And a lot of the healing and spiritual world, we often hear, an inner critic is a part of us, but I believe it's constructed through the psyche in a desperate attempt to try to keep us safe and keep us connected to those that are bringing us up, that we need to keep those connections with in order to feel loved and a sense of belonging, even if that connection and that attachment is unhealthy. So very much with what Ali said, I think childhood plays a foundational role in how that voice develops, because oftentimes when I catch myself in those same stuff, how could you do that? That was really stupid, or here you go again, or just that it's so ingrained in my psyche. But the more I started doing this work, I started realizing that's not even my voice. Like, I don't even talk to myself that way. Like, when I started getting in touch with my authenticity and creating the safety to do so, and of course, healing the emotional trauma and the wounds that are attached to that. Once you start to realize it's just simply passed down programming from other people who received it and other people who received it, just like Ali was saying. So it is very generational. And the good news is we can stop it. It starts with us, and it starts with us really becoming very self-aware and starting to really tune in and listen to how that voice affects our mood, how it affects our emotions, and more importantly, how it affects our health. So I really do believe that that's something that starts in the womb, even a baby picking up on their mother's internal voice for herself. I shouldn't have eaten that. I'm not going to be a good mom. All of that energy the baby is marinating in and really just adopting all of that. And I think the beautiful part of this journey is to learn how to decondition, as Allison speaks of, and really unlearn a lot of these things that aren't actually healthy for us, but they do keep us safe and they keep us surviving. So I do believe there is a purpose, but I know with my inner critic, I've come in and I've had to reorganize the whole company and be like, okay, we're not taking that approach anymore because it's not serving the whole, and then really reevaluating so we can thrive instead of survive only.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. You've made several really good points there. And the first that I latched onto when you were first talking was that the fact that, you do hear that voice, it continues to come up, right? Even when you do the work, you will have that voice pop in here and there, depending on the situation, depending on your vulnerability, where you're at. And you just have to continue to expand that awareness of it, right? Is that something that that's what I heard you saying that you found for yourself? And I found that for myself as well. So thank you so much for what you've shared
You're
with all of
welcome.
us. Yeah, thank you. Allison, so let me ask you, Allison, how does the inner critic develop, and what role does early childhood experiences play in shaping the voice and influence.
And I think everything that Ali and Tiffany said is just the antithesis of exactly what happens, right? And what I want to say here is really it's the mind, right? It was part of the psyche, it's conditioning, but there is this mind when we are, and it works on cycles. So as a little bit of a scientific background, our DNA sheds its elements every 7 years. So right down to the cells of our physical body, our DNA deconstructs itself and then reconstructs itself with new cellular memory. So every 7 years, so 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. These are cycles that we live in. Now, the mindset here is the power of belief. Because from 0 to 7, what do you believe? You believe that you are whole and that you are good enough and that you are loved and, you know, all your needs are met and everything is just fulfilled, right? That is what you believe. It's not until you come out of that conscious state of belief that you're now starting to be conditioned, because by age 7, you've probably been told a billion times, you're not good enough, why you're crying, why you're being sook, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So the cycles playing, I think, as part of the influencing and part of the DNA generational upset that's going on when it comes to our childhood, that it is generational, but it's a 7-year cycle. So if you can, you know, operate from that mindset and use your power of belief. Do I believe this now? No, I don't. Yes, I do. Whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just lose that power of belief because over the years we are conditioned, you know, and told it's not that way.
I love that you bring up the power of belief and the cycles, because if you already have an idea that cycle is up for you, then it's so much easier to recognize, once you know it, the belief, and then you can just sort of, I don't want to say chip away, but kind of, you know, of relaxing that belief and replacing it with something more powerful that aligns with you. I think that alignment piece then is where it really kind of takes hold and grounds it.
Yeah.
So it's
and
very
I mean,
good.
we really have no choice in our early years, right up until we're legally 12, 14, 16, whenever it is that we're allowed to leave home. We have no choice in the matter. We have certain choices, but not every choice. And we have to take on some of those choices, even if we don't believe them to be true. Like Tiffany said, it's for that connection, it's for that significance, it's for whatever that human need is required. That survival, that nervous system regulation of I need to live, I need to be fed, I need to be watered. What am I going to do in order for this to happen and make myself survive one more day? And you do whatever it takes. And that's what you believe in that moment.
Right. Well, and I totally agree with you. Anyways, there's more I could say about that, but that's for another discussion. So maybe we'll do a part 2. So let me ask another question. Tiffany, I'd like to start with you. Are there different voices? Hold on, my question got trapped there. Okay, so are there different voices within the inner critic? And if so, how do they manifest? And how can individuals differentiate between constructive self-criticism and destructive inner criticism?
Ooh, that's a really good question, because I do believe there are different voices, but until you ask that, it all felt like one big voice, right? Just one meshed in voice. But when I think of the experiences and the relationship I've had with my inner critic, sometimes it's more of like a bribing, or I've got a motive here and I'm trying to get you to do something so we can be safe. Sometimes it's like the full-blown bitch and she's mean and the mean girl, and it's like, get her done, I'm cracking the whip. Those have been the 2 main voices, but now you're going to have me really like aware of that and starting to seek and see if there are more. But I do believe that the way that shows up, what was the rest of the question again? Because there was a really good second part to that.
About the self-criticism and destructive inner criticism. So
can you the difference between the 2?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I've worked on a lot in my healing journey, is learning the difference between that self-destructive way of trying to motivate me to do something versus really tuning in and listening to my intuition and my own inner guidance. And I do believe that is the difference. And the more healing we do and the more safety we create in our nervous systems to be ourselves and to live authentically, then we can start to really listen and hear the difference between the two voices. And the way I'm able to do it is based on how I feel and how my body responds to that narrative in my head. So if I'm trying to motivate myself, let's say to go to the gym or work out more, start a different workout routine, we all can relate to that. It's just like, okay, you've got to get up. We're going to start on Monday. Here comes the drill sergeant, right? And at first it's like, okay, this is the voice, so I'm going to just respond to it because it's new. But over time, that willpower wears off and that voice doesn't have the same power. If anything, I start rebelling against it because I feel so beaten down by it and so obligated to listen and so like a horrible person if I don't do the thing. That creates a lot of constriction and contracting in my body. I feel heavier. I may even start to experience physical symptoms like neck pain or headache or some type of chronic sensation, muscle spasm or something like that. Whereas when my intuitive nature is really trying to inspire me to move into something and to take that type of action, I feel lighter. My body responds with less tension. And I may get butterflies in my stomach or feel this really sense of groundedness or just like the lightness where I can do anything. I feel more confident. So I've really had to learn to stop and bring my awareness in, again, that self-awareness, and check in with how my body's responding, because ultimately that is where the truth lies about our experience. Our brain is constructing a lot of stories. There's a lot of programming. There's a lot of things in there that aren't really aligned with our true nature, but our body is at the core of our true nature. And so if we can stop and just listen, our body's going to give us the cues, whether or not it's that demeaning inner critic or if it's our intuitive, corrective critic that's trying to help us in a really, inspiring way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that I want to ask you this question because you brought in intuition as being that more grounded, where you're critiquing, but you're not like criticizing, right?
Yes.
So the criticizing part of you that's self-critical, does that voice have a name? Is that mom, dad, because if we're talking about like how we've all agreed that it starts in our childhood, it starts even in the womb, and it's generational sometimes. I know that for myself, sometimes I find my inner child's in charge of things and she doesn't always do such a great job.
Well, because she's not supposed to be, but she was given
Right.
that responsibility early on to preserve the relationship. But
Yeah.
yes, my inner critic has many names. Starts off dad, number one. My mom was very much like that, but she did it in such a nurturing way. It was kind of disguised, if you will. It was like that well-intended, I want what's best for you. But as I got older and started doing the work, I'm like, I'm a very sensitive soul. I'm a highly sensitive person. And a lot of her approach to help me stay strong and get over it and move through something was too hard for my system. Like it really shut me down. And versus the intuitive, the inner wisdom, my higher self, the guidance from my higher self, it has the name of Tiffany. Like that's who I am. And I haven't really met her and learned what her parenting style is and what her approach is. And so that's what I'm in the process of doing, is bonding and reconnecting and learning about how I would like to be parented and honoring myself in doing that. So it doesn't have to be so critical.
Such good work. Such good work. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Allie, can I ask you the same question? I'm going to repeat it because I know it's long. So are there different voices within the inner critic? And if so, how do they manifest? How can individuals differentiate between constructive self-criticism and destructive inner criticism?
Yeah, I'm just say this a lot. I love what everybody else is sharing. It's I think for me, the ways to really understand the difference is one is a critical thinker and one is critical and criticizing. So if I'm my healthiest self and I'm my inner critic is actually not full of criticism, but rather encouraging me, mentoring me, teaching me, inviting me, comforting me, teaching me, all of these things. She's kind, she's strategic.
Yes.
She's open. That's how that voice works for me. So that's one of the first things where, as I started to heal, at first I would be very almost like a child speaking to myself kindly. And then it just turned into, I get it. This is my own voice I'm listening to. I don't need to call myself honey or dear or princess or whatever, right? I can just go, okay, I understand that. I trust that voice. And the comparison is, if I'm in a place, and it's usually, if anyone else knows, 12-step programs have HALT, right? Don't be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And if any of those are in play, if I'm tired, or if those things are going on, I have a much better chance of the critical part of me coming in and taking over. And that starts typically with name calling, bullying, blaming and judging, and a big list of everything that went wrong. There's no negotiation. There's no place to kind of come in and say, wait, well, what about this part? No, that voice comes in with authority and anger and judgment. For me, that's my experience. It can be quite unkind. And so it's a giveaway now, right? Because I think I would not ever talk to anyone that way. I would not talk to, well, let me say this too, for all of us who are any recovering perfectionists, I would have talked to many people like that in my past. I'm sure I could be pretty hard about things. Once healing began, and I started to realize that things like my parents were just people trying to make it through. They do not need to be stuck in time with that's their role. They are just humans making it through. And they did so many wonderful things, and they tripped and fell and splattered along the way a few times too. And so as I started to see all that, I was like, okay, so now if I'm doing something and I can hear the spin start, right? What? Oh no, you did. They probably thought all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So right away I know, okay, so that is not healthy. That's not helpful. That's not kind. So how about we just slow that down a little bit? And that's sort of where it works for me, is that it's really in the tone of voice. If I would not speak to my daughter the way I'm speaking to myself, chances are the wrong woman is driving the truck that day.
Right. Yeah. That's so true. And she could be at any age you were growing up, that would adopt that kind of languaging. So I love that. And you said something else about your parents. And I think that, as we talk about this issue and we kind of discuss, parental influence over how we, criticize ourselves internally and who's in charge, it's important to know that, like you mentioned it, our parents were our people. They were doing their best with what they knew and what they were raised under. And so often we default on how we were raised. I can't tell you the number of times with my oldest child, sorry, oldest child, you were my tester. Yet, there were things that I did that were part of my upbringing that after I did it, I went, oh, wait a minute. Whoa, I've got to switch that. That's not my parenting style. So, I think that it's important to recognize that our parents are doing the very best, just like we do when we have children, is do our very best to be the most, informative and evolved as we can be. So I really thank you for your answer. It was very extensive and gives us a lot of really good information. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Allison,
How do you follow on from that? Like,
I know, but yeah, I know you can do it.
of course I can.
I know you have something good.
There's always something good coming. And through the conversation, just listening again. So the question, like the voices I have, there is the inner child voice, there's the teenage voice, there's the young adult voice, there's like the mum voice, there's all the things, right? What I like to call her is Betty, because I love Betty White, God rest her soul. And the only way that I could name it without attaching myself to it, right, was calling her Betty, because it would make me laugh. It would diffuse the situation, right? Because that's the kind of girl that I grew up watching Golden Girls. Yes, I'm old, but you know, you know what I'm saying? She just always came through with the right words in the right moment, and you go, kapow, oh my God, Betty. And so when Betty is on the train, in the truck, driving, going, where are we going? What are we doing? Why are you not doing this fast enough? Come on, come on, come on. It's like a fucking Betty out the back. Go on, get lost. But to me, this sort of inner critic stuff and all of that, we can have Betty running the show for years and years and years. The manifestation of that to me is a spiritual awakening, rock bottom, where you get to that point where enough is enough. And you're like, Betty, you're really out the fucking back this time. Excuse my language. Sorry for those kids watching. But it's really empowering to have, you know, Alison, the higher self, the intuitive person that I am in grounded, coming through over Betty. You know, my spiritual awakening 12 years ago led me to human design. And once I worked that out, right, it was my key factors in knowing who I was and how I ran the show. Right. So to me, it manifests as a spiritual awakening or rock bottom, where you're just choosing, and it is a choice that you're not Betty's not running the show today, Alison's running the show today. And it comes down to a choice, and a conscious one every single day.
So Alison, I'm going to roll this into my next question. I'm going to ask you first.
Okay, go right ahead.
So the next question is, what are some common strategies or techniques for managing or silencing the inner critic? And are there mindfulness practices or therapeutic approaches that have proven particularly effective in this regard?
So the strategies and techniques that I use, as I just explained, Betty, get out the back. Like, I don't want you here. You're not welcome here today. Alison's running the show, whatever. That's a strategy. Another way that I do it is connecting to Alison, my higher self, every single day in meditation, and just breathing with my heart. Right? It's real practical. You just kind of fill up the room with love. You fill up the country with love. You fill up the world with love, and you come back to earth, and then you're back in Alison's body again. It's really simple, but I find that would be a really good way of silencing the inner critic. You know, having coaching, someone who can keep you accountable for some of this stuff. I know for you, having, you want someone to be in your, because Betty will come up.
Yes.
And sometimes Betty takes over, and you need someone to kick your ass to get it out of that mode, right? So for me, like, another strategy would be go and get some help, like go and get a coach, go and get a mentor, go and get a guide, ask your best friend to keep you accountable, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But just, how many more strategies do you want, hun?
I mean, those are
I
pretty
can give you
good.
a couple more, but I'm sure the girls have got others to share.
I love that you start off with setting an intention. Like, to start off with an intention each day sets you up for more success, right? It sets you into that space of being in your excellence. So that's not perfection. It's just being the best you can in that moment, every moment of the day.
It's choice. And that's one thing that I have learned, that it is a choice, whether I can be this or I can be that.
Yeah.
And I'm only that choice because of the influence around me.
Love it. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Allison. So Allie, can I ask you the same question? And I'll go ahead and repeat it just so make sure we get everything here. What are the common strategies or techniques for managing or silencing the inner critic? And are there mindfulness practices or therapeutic approaches that have proven particularly effective in this regard?
I think I always go back to HALT for me. The hungry, angry, lonely, tired is where it's sort of my foundation. That's where everything starts. I can usually tell if when the wheels start to come off the bus. So the first thing I need to do is to make really sure that my physical needs are taken care of. It's like anything. We're all intuitive. The planet is intuitive. If only we would pay attention to that, right? And so knowing that anything that is going to come into me, any experience I'm going to have, any joys or hardships that I'm going to have are all going to have to come through this vessel. This is what's going to have to process the information, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Anything is going to come through this vessel. So I need to make sure that this vessel is, I'm not going to go for a long car ride for a road trip somewhere and not make sure I have, checked my tires and made sure I have my gas and my oil and all of it. And of course, snacks for the road, right? So these things are going to be important to me. And so I've really taken it kind of just like that. It's not a big surprise. It's nothing terribly fancy. It's my baseline is, did I get enough sleep? Am I drinking enough water? Have I gone for a walk that day? If I have something to say, have I said it? If I have something to hear, have I listened? And that's where I start. And then everything from there. So I have my own mindfulness practices. I do sound baths on myself. I do my meditations. I do my meditations. I do meta loving kindness. There's a certain way, and I can always tell, if I was a little bit busy that day. So when I wake up, I do this thing every Monday. It's live on Facebook, and it's just called Mahalo Monday. And I just do mindfulness and sound bath and talk about gratitude and things like that. And so one of the things that I say is always, think of three, when you first wake up, think of 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for. Before you grab your phone, on your way to the bathroom, whatever you're doing, just let that be. And it can be your dog, your house, your bed. It doesn't have to be grand and glorious. Just remember gratitude. And when I go to sleep, that's my same practice that's the pillow that I put my head into, is 3 things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes they're long and wonderful, and don't I sound like some kind of a poet? And sometimes it's like, yeah, my dog, my cat, it's like, but I make sure I get them in there because I believe very much like Allison, I believe it was, everybody here has been really talking about it, is intention and how our body works, the chemistry in our brains, in our bodies, how gratitude can shift that, it calms down it calms down certain things and brings to life other things. Cortisol, it's, just all of the things that it works out in our bodies. So those are some of the things that for me, it's hard for me to be grateful and judging at the same time. And so if I remember that as long as I'm rested, I've hydrated, I'm, all of those things. And then if I stay grateful and if I start to go off somewhere, it's very hard to hold a judging thought towards myself or anyone and gratitude. It's just, it doesn't balance well. I drop them both. Right. So I think that's my simple approach. It's not so fancy, but it works for me.
Oh, I love that, because I think when you talk about HALT, what comes to mind for me is that is so poignant in the fact that those are the types of things that can trigger you. So if you're taking care of yourself by using that acronym, then you're going to be less triggered. It's going to be easier for you to stay in charge. And when you're exercising gratitude, starting your day off with that, gratitude is directly linked into love, and there's nothing more powerful. So Absolutely. That's beautiful, beautiful advice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Tiffany, tell me what you
Yeah.
got to say.
This is a juicy topic. I absolutely love it. And I have to say, Allie, like that being resourced is everything, because then you're just like, okay, where, like, kind of like our phones, we know how much battery life we have. We know that what our capacity is to make a call, or how much time we have before we need to reset and restore and recharge. So I think that that is really foundational. So thank you for reiterating that again, because that's a really huge point. For me, it's really about shining a light on your inner critic. Like, you have to be aware that there is one. I know for many years, I didn't know the difference between that voice, my voice, parents' voice, whoever's voice. It just was like who I was, and it just was what it was, and there was nothing I could do about it, and it's just the way it was. And so really starting to create some separation and bringing your conscious mind online with what's happening in your unconscious, and making a connection. So we're having this conversation, inner critic, I get curious, I wonder what my inner critic is up to, right? We have to start like watching these parts of ourselves if we want to gain more understanding on what to do about them, and how to manage them, and how to get them out of the driver's seat and move them to where they actually could serve in a better place with us, right? And so number one strategy is just becoming aware and starting to like connect and watch, and just become the observer of your inner critic, and notice, wow, when I talk to myself like that, I wonder how that turns out with how I feel, my motivation to get the thing done, what my end result is. Like, you can really start to track and really break down the little nuances of how that impacts you on a daily basis. And once you can see how it's impacting you, then you're back in your power of authority to say, I don't want it to keep being like this. Like what Allison was saying, like, this is not okay with me. And then it goes into deciding and getting clear on how you want to be treated, but more importantly, how you need to be treated in order to thrive and function at your optimal best. That's not the same for everybody. So, quick story, growing up, my dad was really militant, very masculine. He wanted me to be a boy. Like, the doctors gave me to my dad in a blue blanket. He swore he was having a little boy, and to his surprise, that is not what I was. Right? He was a little let down. So instead, he raised me like I was a little boy, very tough, very pushing, always in sports, very high achieving, having to perform and do and really live in my masculine energy. And for many years, I took on that same voice with myself. Like, I need to push myself, and I need to go overboard, and I need to really light the fire under my ass in order to get things done, or else I'm going to be lazy. And, that whole conversation. Well, as I got older, that does not go well with my sensitive system. My sensitive nervous system needs nurturing and care and gentleness and softness. My dad saw that as very weak. My mom did too. So then I adopted that belief as well. Well, doing this work and really learning who I am, I don't need to be treated that way. That's not how I am motivated, for somebody like cracking the whip on me and telling me that's putting all this pressure. That actually works against me, and I don't operate at my best under that kind of pressure. So once I started to get clear on what I want and how I want to be treated and how I need to be treated, it was a lot. And then I brought the awareness to my inner critic, her voice, how she shows up, how it shows up in my body, and how I create results in my life as under that kind of influence. That made it really easy to start really standing in my power of decision and deciding, like, that doesn't serve me. It doesn't fill me up. It doesn't light me up. I'm not my best when I'm coming at myself this way. And it really helped me start to turn that around and start to play with and get curious. Well, okay, well then how would I like to talk to myself? What does serve me better? How am I more motivated? And it really was a fun exploration, because I really got to know my true self that way through my inner guidance versus the inner critic pushing me and forcing me to do it that way. So it was really helpful to become aware and start to watch the inner critic, because once you have eyes on the inner critic, she can't hide out in the darkness anymore, playing her little tricks on you and having her little plots and schemes. Right? Once you have eyes on her, it's like, I see you. And it's proven people and things act differently when they're being observed. So it's the first one, awareness and observing and kind of watching and not doing anything there, just watching and noticing how that pattern shows up, so you can gather the information you need for how you would like to be treated and how you need to be treated in order to thrive.
I love that. You've mentioned like all of you, each of you have mentioned foundational lessons that we can all take that really will build and allow you to be more authentic. Intention, gratitude, and then you brought in observation, which I feel is such a huge thing in self-development. And what I love about what you were saying is that it can lead you to really identifying your values, and knowing what you value helps you to really start honing in on that piece that you were talking about of knowing what you want, what you like, so that you can be your truest self. I just love what you had to say, Tiffany. And all of you have given like such great foundational, assistance to our audience. So I love that. And if anyone listening has any questions, please let us know, put them in your comments or chat. And if we don't see them live, we will definitely get back to you. Tiffany, did you have something you wanted to add?
Really quick to add to that, the one thing that's not talked about enough is self-abuse. And that's what the inner critic is doing. It's very abusive, and abuse in any other form is never okay. I mean, there's penalties, and you can go to jail, and you can get in a lot of trouble for abusing other people, but nobody's monitoring how we're treating and abusing ourselves. And not even just, I mean, self-harm is a big topic out there, and it's definitely needs nurturing and attention. And even below that, the invisible wounds of the verbal and emotional abuse that critic can bring to us, and the way it kind of has its thumb down on us, like we're not good enough. You've got to take a stand and say no more, just like you would being in an abusive relationship or being in an abusive situation. At some point, once you identify your value, like you said, it becomes a lot easier to notice those self-abusive patterns. We all have them, so there's no judgment, and really start to take a stand and say, hey, I'm not putting up with this anymore. Not even from myself. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Well, and I think that what you've just mentioned is just a beautiful segue into the last question that I have. And I'm going to start with you because you're on a roll, and I want to make sure that this gets, carried through, because you're on a really good stream of thought here. So can you discuss the relationship between the inner critic and self-esteem, and how does the inner critic impact one's self-worth, which you're already touching on, and are their strategies for mitigating its negative effects?
Yeah, I really believe there's a undeniable connection between the inner critic and our self-esteem. And as children, when this is developing in our psyche, it really is a really twisted attempt to help us feel better about ourselves by doing the things we need to do to preserve our sense of safety and attachment and belonging with others, which is a fundamental human need emotionally. So I do believe early on it's designed to protect us in some way, and it can be well intended, but through life experiences and attracting more and more people who validate that voice already, and then we take it on and we take it on, we just get a stronger belief in that. It really does affect our self-esteem deeply, because we're being so mean to ourselves, right? How can you feel good about yourself when you've got this voice constantly talking shit to you all day long, telling you how you shouldn't have done it that way, telling you how stupid you are, telling you you'll never amount to anything, or you're never going to be able to start that business, or that guy doesn't love you, or you're such a horrible mom, look at all these other moms doing a good job. Like, it's really trying to get you and motivate you to step up. But just hearing me say that, I'm feeling my own inner child, like, ugh, like it's just, I just feel smaller and smaller and smaller, and my self-esteem is just very flat. So a strategy for that, to me, the antidote for that is just really learning to practice self-kindness, like something we learn in elementary school, kindergarten even, is just to be kind. And what that looks like, how we're talking to ourselves, how we're approaching ourselves, our energy when we do make a mistake, and really being able to become so self-aware that you're acknowledging, okay, this is how I was taught and programmed to respond, and now I want to choose a different way to do this, and really nurturing those parts of you so that you can understand again what you need and how
Yeah.
you need to be approached and how you need to be talked to, and what better practice than to do that with yourself. And then the more you can do that, it just ripples out. It's a beautiful thing. And then other people treat you the way that you're treating yourself internally. Because we could all put on a face and smile and say and post pictures online and, oh, I love myself, but that energy is not going to lie.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It comes in the room before you do.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's like our online energetic body odor. People can smell it from a mile away, and it will repel or it can attract. But if we can just really start to implement more self-kindness,
Mhm.
and that can look like, for many people, just taking a neutral stance instead of turning around and beating yourself up and grabbing that bat to knock yourself down. If going as far as, oh, I love you, and like Ali was saying, the oh honey and oh baby, you don't have to butter yourself up either. It's just a matter of, how about I just put the bat down? How about I just stay neutral on this one, and I don't feed into it right now. And then you just spend some time exercising a muscle of detaching in stages from the power that inner critic seems to have over you.
That's really good. That's really good. Thank you so much. Allison, I'd like to move on to you.
Wow. Look, the relationship between the inner critic and self-esteem impacts us so significantly. We touched on this in the beginning, like generational trauma, generational, mum was just doing what she knew. Mum before her was doing what she knew. Mum was doing, and you look at our advancement, you look at our ascension on earth, right? I know personally there was choices that I made as a young adult that I was like, I am not going to be that parent. I am not going to be doing this, and I'm not going to be doing that. And when I found myself doing those things, I was like, oh, but it's stopping the pattern, right? That's what builds our self-worth, is stopping the pattern, right? We might have chose this or subconsciously chose this. But as Tiffany said, when it comes into our awareness and we become that observer, that's when we get the choice. That's when we get to choose something completely different. We get to believe something entirely different. And it doesn't matter what it was, right? And I really, for me, using human design to mitigate strategies and ways to diffuse those negative narratives that we tell ourselves, right? Our human design gives us our energetic blueprint, right? As you said earlier, our aura comes into the room before we do, right? And when you know how you operate energetically, life just gets so much more simpler, and that inner critic doesn't come up as often because you're navigating the now rather than the past or the future.
Right. So that using that strategy with your human design can build your self-esteem.
Yes, it gets you to own a lot of parts of you that you kind of know that are you, but you don't potentially want to embody. So I know for me, in my sun sign, I have the gate of control. So as a young kid, I wanted to be in control of everything. I didn't know how to use this energy, right? It wasn't until I got my human design chart 12 years ago and I've gone, oh, that's why I do what I do. That's why I've been what I've been. That there interrupts the pattern in itself. Right. And you get to consciously choose new beliefs, new choices, new this, right? Because you don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the negative Nancy who's always complaining about, woe is me. It's not fair because I didn't get this and I didn't get that because I'm trying to control every situation.
Right.
Right. Instead, now I know for me, the only thing that I can control is me. I can't even control my own children. Right. Even though I've given birth to them, I cannot control them. They're in the driver's seat of their own soul.
Right.
Right. So when my son says to me he wants to go to the military, and as a mom, I go, oh my God, I go into that negative Nancy moment. It's out of my control. Be okay with that. He wants to join the military. This is his life purpose. Go do it. Enjoy yourself. I love it. I would be sad if something happens, but that's just navigating the now. because it's not happening. You're going into future events.
Yeah.
You're trying to, inner critic's already going, but.
Right. So inner critic gets to experience being uncomfortable. And that's good because that's growth, that's stretching, that's all
It's
those.
expansion, and it's all those things that you need to do in order to, you know,
Beautiful.
live your life with purpose.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison. Thank
Pleasure.
you. Beautiful answer. Allie, are you ready to answer this one?
I never am, and then I just start talking. That's how that goes.
Yeah, that's right.
So relationship between my inner critic and self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, of course, there is a relationship in terms of how much space I'm willing to give the unkind side of an inner critic is going to have the possibility of just absolutely crushing and squashing things down. I think for me, and you know what, the last 3 years really solidified this for me, but I've been learning, like, I'm 64. You start to learn these things after a while. I mean, after a certain age, yeah, at 30, I thought, and then at 40, and then at 50, and then at 60, and I thought, oh my gosh, I could almost spit to 70. I better start figuring stuff out. You got to figure some shit out, Allie. But I learned that I don't need to have an opinion on everything. And once I realized I don't actually need to hold an opinion on every little thing. I don't need to have an opinion on what anybody else does about things. I don't have to have an opinion on a topic, on the words I used, I don't have to just hold these great opinions. And what I mean by it, I can have a thought, I can have a hope, I can have a whole bunch of things, but an opinion is a strong, I find opinion for me is a very strong word that I've learned over the years that I use it quite sparingly, because an opinion almost is a gauntlet, right? I throw that down and this is my truth. And if anybody tries to, come past that, you're going to have to come up with a really good reason why. And I think that what happened for me was that my inner critic had a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
and held them tightly. There was no playing in any of it. And so I totally was relating to so much of what Tiffany was saying. Is I'm this highly sensitive, intuitive little, I am some kind of a rainbow and unicorn girl. And sometimes I'm clothed in this harsh military, that's funny, Allison's saying harsh 35-year military wife robe, and both people are true and real, and me I am both people. I'm all of the people, right? I can be strong and have to do what I need to do and hold boundaries and all of that, and I'm gentle. I could stop in a moment and give someone care and kindness. I could also turn around and be quite, I won't say vicious, but certainly strong and firm if someone was to come near someone that I cared about. Like, I'm all of those people. I'm all of them. I'm just me, and those are all the different sides of me. And I used to hold contempt and opinions and all these things so strongly that it was just, so multidimensional. But I held those things so strongly that my self-esteem, it was like, if you've ever walked into a room and you feel pretty good about yourself, and then there's a person that has the kind of energy that for whatever I could feel intimidated by, I could feel intimidated by myself. My self-esteem could be, intimidated by my self-critic, and she would cower a bit. And then I don't know, I don't really want to say anything because it's probably not important anyways. That kind of a thing would be going on. And I was like, I was thinking about some old movie, Slaps. I think it's Airplane or something, slap yourself out of it or something like that. But I would be very much like that. And now I just understand if I can get them to work together. I was just saying, what is the other, how does the inner critic impact one's self-worth, and are there strategies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to have all the answers. So that was a really good one. I don't have to have all the answers because I haven't even figured out all the questions yet. And once I
Right.
really understood that, then I was like, oh, okay. I don't
Yeah.
even have the questions, let alone the answers for most things, but I'm curious and I'm
Mhm.
open and I'm willing. And so
Yeah.
that's how that works for me now. I'm curious, I'm open, I'm willing. That's what I lead with.
And that's a strategy.
That's mine.
Right. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So everyone out there who had the opportunity to listen to this conversation live, I know you're walking away with a lot out of it. And I want to thank my experts for being here. You all just answered such thoroughly and gave this audience so much wisdom to walk away with and implement on resolving their own inner critic and recognizing where it's coming from. So I want to thank you and I honor you for being here, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to ask Sophia to come back if she can and give us some beautiful information about Sacred You. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Josette. Thank you so very much for facilitating a wonderful discussion. I've been sitting here in the background, putting everyone's links in the comments. So for everyone who is watching, whether it's live or on the replay, do click on everyone's links because we have some amazing women here who have just given up an hour of their time to share their passion and their wisdom on that, to talk to us about that inner critic, which is a rather interesting, I'm trying to think of being's not the word, but anyway, rather interesting topic. So thank you, Josette. So yes, lots to share, but again, clicking on the links below, we've got information on what's coming up in less than 2 weeks. We are so excited. Are you excited, Josette?
I'm really excited. Cannot
And
wait.
Alison, because Alison is really excited. Josette is one of our beautiful facilitators in the masterclass, in offering her masterclass on boundaries and values. And Alison will be doing not just one masterclass, but 2 masterclasses, and also being a reader. Click on all the links below. They're all down there. Harmony Fest, 4 days of incredible things to experience, 4 days of an incredible experience. We've got virtual stall holders, we've got masterclasses, and we've got online readers, and that's coming up in less than 2 weeks, just 12 days. Countdown's on, 12 days. So, and again, more information, come and join us in Sacred You at the Harmony Fest. That's the main thing. Can I have time, just very quickly, Josette, because I know you do have to leave. Tell us about your masterclass.
Oh, my masterclass is Boundaries by Design, and it's all about using your values as the blueprint and creating your boundaries with fun and creativity rather than having to dig deep and figure out, oh, I don't know, what do I need a boundary? How do I figure out boundaries? Because I think we all struggle with that. And boundaries can be a little bit of a dirty word for a lot of us. And we don't really want to have to figure out, how do I set a boundary? And it's uncomfortable to set new boundaries. None of us really feel like, great, oh, I've got a boundary now.
Yes.
So I show you a formula on how to do that with more fun and ease.
Good, thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And of course, the link's down there. So thank you very much. And Alison said Alison's not just got 1 masterclass, but 2. And being a reader as well. You're going to be very busy. Talk about multitasking.
I am a generator. Can't help it. I've got to do all the things.
I get that one. So tell us about your masterclasses.
So I'm hosting, as Sophia said, 2 masterclasses. The first one is the introduction to the Akashic Records. We are all clear channels to the light. No matter what you say to yourself, no matter what your inner critic tells you, we can channel. We are channelers. So as we speak, we just channel. And how many times has something come out of your mouth and you go, where did that come from? Right? That's you channeling. And I would love to invite you to join the introduction to the Akashic Records, where you get to learn and experience how to be this person on the reg. That is free. And also the second masterclass that I am hosting is called Aura and Money, which is all about knowing how you energetically operate using your human design chart in a really, really simple way. And it's just your aura, right? So I said earlier that I was a generator. I'm going to show you how you can increase making money using your human design aura. So that is the second one.
Which is wonderful. Thank you. And again, those links are below. And not only of that, you're also offering readings.
Yes, offering human design intuitive readings for 30 minutes in a hot seat. So love for you to come and get that intuitive insight.
All right. So thank you for that. And what about our beautiful other Ali? Ali, tell us a little bit about you and what you're offering to everyone who's watching. I said we have put all your links down in.
Oh, thank you. Well, first, I'm just thrilled to have spent some time with all these incredible women here, and it sounds the Harmony Fest sounds just fabulous. I can't wait to take some of it in. So what I'd like to offer is just for anyone who wants to contact me, a free hour. We'll just Zoom and we'll see where it goes. Whether that is doing some sound therapies over the online, or some meditation, or readings, or whatever we might get ourselves, whatever little stuff we might get ourselves into, anything in that. And they can check out my website, see a little bit about what I've been up to. And yeah, if anybody wants to contact me also for a book, I've written some books, and I've got some kids books coming out in the new year that I'm ridiculously excited about. But there has been a very keen interest again of my book, The Art of Healing Trauma. And that's, some people have been contacting me from all over. Bye-bye, Josette. Thanks so much. And so yeah, that's basically, that's me in a nutshell. And also, if anyone here would be interested, and if these other incredible guests would be interested in being a guest on my podcast, Find Your Joy, I think that you would all be perfect.
So do I. Thank you. And of course, all your links are below, and I thoroughly recommend being a guest on Ali's podcast too. I've had the honor of doing that. And Ali, we need to have you back to talk about your books and stuff like that. Absolutely. Yeah. And Tiffany, what about your beautiful self? How can people contact you?
Yeah, well, first, Ali and Allison, I'm interested in the podcast or being a guest and learning more about your work. And then Allison, I would love to be in your workshop. Those free events sound amazing. It's really aligning with where I'm at in my journey. So I will look for your links there at the bottom. I'm excited about that. And it was just lovely meeting all of you two today. And I can be found at tiffanycoachme.com. That's my website. I'm offering a free 45-minute wake-up call with me so that you can really wake up to what is really holding you back. Oftentimes what we think is the problem is not the problem, and I help you really wake up to who you are and what your gifts are so that you can stop being a slave and under the hypnosis and the thumb of your inner critic and get out there and live the life that you came here to live. We all have a purpose. None of us are unicorns. We just have to choose to tap in, and it doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes alignment. So in this wake up call, we're exploring what it is that you are asleep to within yourself so that you can wake up and start really living true to who you are. And that's a free 45-minute call with me. The link will be in the comments. And then I also wanted to offer a free e-guide. So a 5-page e-guide. It's very short, and it's 11 ways to reduce anxiety and create a more peaceful inner environment. Our inner critic can create tons of anxiety, tons of depression. That's what I help my clients with. And it's really a good way to get started. There's 11 tips in there. Don't cost you a thing. You can start implementing these into your psyche and start shifting the way that you're operating and really stand in charge and start taking that stand today to start implementing these practices that are going to help regulate your nervous system, get you more in touch with the kind version of you, and start learning how to operate under that versus this mean inner critic that often doesn't make us feel very good about ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you ever so much. And I look forward to hearing more about it. And again, thank you all for joining us today. It's been an incredible experience. I've had fun listening to it all in the background. And I look forward to the next. Again, for everyone who's watching, click on the links. We've got some fabulous panels coming up. In fact, there's one in just a few days' time, something on, I should know because I'm facilitating it, shouldn't I? I should know. Something on
There's that inner
rituals.
critic, Sophia.
Exactly. Thank you. The rituals that we have in our life. So that's coming up in 4 days' time. Have a beautiful day wherever you are watching us. And for all these beautiful women, again, thank you ever so much.